So in week 6, you will find a couple things that you can download in order to use and create packaging for the assignment using your logo from our AIDS candies, diet candies exercise. So the first thing you're going to need is your the PDF of your logo. And I had mine zipped and uploaded to the portal. So I've downloaded that, but you can't access files out of a zip folder. So you actually have to double click your zip folder and extract the folder from it. So I'm on a Macintosh computer and it automatically extracts it. If you're on a PC, you double click the folder and then the zip file and then drag and drop the contents of the zip file out onto your desktop. So I have all my fonts here. What I need out of that folder is actually the PDF that we created with all of our different options for our logo that we created. So I'm just going to drag and drop that onto my desktop. Just going to drag it right out. And then I can actually get rid of these. If you can right click, you can move those to the trash can. Now the other one we're going to need is this chocolate bar mock-up. So it's near the bottom of the list of many different mock-ups that I provided to you to play with in Photoshop. So I'm going to double click that zip in order to extract the folder. Again, if you're on a PC, you double click and you drag and drop the necessary file out of the folder, which is this one called a PSD file. So that is a layered file that we're going to use, and we're going to replace their logo with ours in this mockup. So I'm going to drag and drop the PSD out of this folder. Come on. Trackpads. They're great when they work properly. Here we go. There we go. And I've just dragged it out of the folder. So I don't need that folder anymore. I've got my PSD file on my desktop. And I'm going to right click and send those to the trash can. So I now have my PDF and my PSD. So I'm going to double click the chocolate bar mockup. It's a Photoshop file, and because it's a PSD, it will launch Photoshop. It doesn't have any other option than to launch Photoshop as the chosen software. And so now you can see this awesome chocolate bar page that we're actually going to not remove, we're going to replace this logo in the chocolate bar. And if I zoom in on that, it's very cool. You can see that it looks like it's pressed right into the chocolate. So it's molded right into the chocolate. So this is using that same technique that we used last week with embossing. However, someone else already created this file. So if I do Control or Command 0, I can go back to full screen here. And the first thing you have to do when you use anybody's templates is discover what is in this template. What have they created here? Okay, so there's all these different layers in the layers palette. You can see that we have the label here on this packaging here. You can see if I turn on and off the eyeballs, they've created more than one packaging, which is great, which allows you to do the same thing. You can use one file and create different flavors of labels, keeping your logo here, but just creating different package covers by simply turning on what you want to preview for that particular file, save it, and then move on to the next one. So you can see you can save multiple different flavors of your chocolate if you were going to have different flavors available in one file by just turning on and off your layers. Another thing that we have to take a look at is if you take a look at this chocolate label here, you can see that there are things in a folder. There's a tiny little arrow between the eyeball and the folder. That little triangle there, I'm going to click on it and it closes up the folder. I need to open up the folder below it to reveal what's inside. So I'm going to click on the little triangle between the eyeball and the folder, and that's revealing this here. What I need to replace is the logo on this chocolate. So last week when we took a look at what a smart object is. So if I turn on and off this eyeball, you can see that, okay, I want to replace this logo that says your logo. I want to replace it with my logo. So that is the file I need to open. So I'm not going to double click on the layer. What I need to double click on is this tiny little icon here that when I hover over it, it says Smart Object. I need to open this Smart Object in order to replace it. So I'm going to double click it. And you notice here's the file I was in with the layers, but now I'm in, it opened the Smart Object as a new file. It's still connected though to this one. It is a smart object. So smart objects have this really unique way of working, and we don't want to replace every single one of these logos individually, one at a time. So if you take a look at the top of the layers palette, you can see, hey, wait a minute, your logo inside. Perfect. Let's double click that smart object. And you can see it opened yet another file, which is connected to this file, which is connected to this file. So we're going to take advantage of the properties of the smart object. Now, they used a font, so we're not going to resolve that font because, you know what, we don't need their logo and their font. So I'm going to Control or Command plus to zoom in. And I'm just going to turn those off. I don't need them, right? What I do need, however, is my own logo to fill this space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Command or Control Open. So that would be O for open. I can do it that way or under File Open, like so. I'm going to go to my desktop and I'm going to select my logo that we created in class. Depending on what section you were in, you might have a different name. And it's my PDF file. Yes, it's going to open the entire page. So I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to select this one here. I like this particular file. So with my selection tool, the rectangular marquee, I'm going to select that tool, click and drag a selection over this particular logo I like. Now notice I went much further than what I need without overlapping my other logos. It's only going to pick up what it can read as pixels. The rest of it is transparent. So you don't have to worry about getting as tight as you can to the logo. That's okay, because it can only pick up right up to the edge of what it can read as pixels. Now, in order for me to copy that and paste that into that other logo file, I need to select my Move tool. So I'm going to go back up to the Move tool. Now I can Control C. See how there's a little pair of scissors here now? So if I click, I've made a copy. And then if I Command Paste, I can paste that in. Oh, I didn't quite get my copy. There we go. I got it. I can cut it. So I'm going to Control or Command C to copy my selection. Go back to Photoshop this file here, and I'm going to Control or Command V as in Victor to paste that in. Now it is far too large because that is a fairly small logo space. So I'm going to Control or Command minus to zoom out. And if you can recall, you need Command or Control T as in Tom to get the bounding box for that file. So I'm going to scroll this down and move it into the space here. And I need to grab a corner anchor point. There we go. Now, if I'm going to see what I'm doing, I need to zoom in. So Command plus, or if you want it in full screen, Command 0 or Control 0. There we go. And I'm going to pay attention to those pink lines to make sure that it's centered in the space. So see what happens when I move this around? When I get it centered, those pink lines show up to show me that I've centered it in the space. Once I'm happy with the size and the location of my file with the bounding box, I'm going to hit return or enter to commit. Now, it looks really pixelated right now, but if you command or control minus, it's actually not going to be that big in preview. So now that I've finished and I've got my my logo here, I'm actually going to use my arrow keys and move it slightly to the left. There we go. I want the word bytes, I think, centered in the space. So visually it looks centered because this S kind of hangs over. So now that I'm happy with that, I'm going to save it. So I need to file, save. Once I've saved it here and I close it off, watch what happens in the next file. This one, look at that. It's replaced every single instance of that smart object in this file. Excellent. So I'll save that one too. Save. And now I'm going to close that off and watch the magic happen. And the original file here. There it is. Take a look at that. There it is. It's replaced every single one of them because the properties of that layer with the smart object, all these effects that they created, see, they've got all these effects built into that file. When we replaced that smart object, it took on all the properties of those effects, which is so, so cool. See all these effects? It took those on with our new file, our own logo. So Control or Command 0 to get that into place. Now, the other thing that I need to do is replace this label. So I've got the label in here. See the chocolate label? I want to replace this label with my own logo. So what I'm going to do is click on label 3 here, the one at the top, and I'm going to Control or Command V because it's still, it was copied, so until I copy something new, I still have my logo there. And Control or Command T to get the bounding box, and I'm just going to shrink it down to the size I want. There we go. I think I might move that down. Now, what do I want to keep on this package? So I'm going to hit enter or return to lock that down. But I don't want this one turned on, so I'm going to turn it off over here in the layers palette. There, and then all that remains is me. Now, what if I want to add something else to this packaging? I'm going to create a new layer. And I'm going to add some color to this package. So if we go here, you can see this is the chocolate packaging here. I can either create a new layer and load it on top, or what I can do is go to this layer and double click it and work on the effects. Just like we did last week with our effects. I'm going to add a gradient overlay. See that? It doesn't look like anything. Why? Because it's white. And notice it's also opaque. It's set to normal. If I change that to multiply, that gradient is now going to blend into the image below. And I can change the opacity. And you can see that it's slightly darker to white here. So if I change that to 100%, you can see that it slightly changes here. But I don't want white to gray. What I want is, if I click on it, I'm going to choose this second one right here. I don't want black. So you can see there's all these cool different gradients you can choose. And we just click on these colors down here. And we can change the color to anything we want. But I don't want this particular gradient. I want to go from a solid color to transparency. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this black color right here. And you can see at the bottom it shows up here. That allows you to choose that color and change the color to whatever you like. So I'm going to choose, if I move my mouse outside of this color picker, see, I can pick any color I want in here. But what if I want to repeat and copy this color out of the word slim? I move my mouse outside of the color picker and you'll see it turns into an eyedropper. I'm going to sample the color out of my logo. And I've now got the color of my logo right there. So I'm going to click OK. And so there's my color scheme. Now this is black over on this side, so it fades from pink to black. Well, that's not good. I'm going to fade it to white instead. There we go. Okay, so you have complete control over these colors. You even have complete control over where the gradient starts and stops by moving this little button in between the two colors here. Crazy, right? What you can do in here? How awesome is that? So now I'm going to click OK. That's just using this gradient overlay. So that allows me to apply color to this particular shape by double clicking the layer and adding a color overlay. I'm going to click OK. Now the background color is blue. Ew, it is not a good color. Food does not look nice on a blue background. Well, if we go down to the very bottom layer, at the very bottom, the background, double click, we can do a color overlay. So click on the words color overlay, make sure it's highlighted so that you can see the results to the right. As to your options, I'm going to click on this little gray box. And I think I'm going to use a green color here. That is bright, 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 bright. Okay, I kind of like that color. So this would be a complementary color scheme because the green is opposite the pink on the 12-point color wheel. So I'm going to click OK there. Now, this is insane. This is really bright. I'm going to add a little bit of texture here. There we go. And that helps break it down and make it look more flat, like there's an actual surface it's sitting on. Let's change the scale of what's in behind there. Maybe I'm gonna have some fun with these dots. See the dots? Click over to the side to get rid of that window. I can scale them. Let's see. I can change the depth of them. Oh, I kind of like that. That looks cool. Ooh, nope. I'm going to get partway in the middle here. There we go. I like that soft effect. So that's just playing with the depth. And then I can change the scale. I can go really small scale. I can go a little bit bigger. There we go. I kind of like the look of that. All right. And then what else can I do? I can always add a gradient overlay. Do I really want this pink? I think I want to go back to black. There we go. And it fades off to white. So where are my effects? Let's see. Am I getting an effect? I'm multiplying it. I'm not getting anything that's showing up here, so something's gone awry. I do have my color overlay. Oh, maybe if I multiply it. There we go. So you can see that your blending modes here, you can change the look of it just by the way it's blended, because the background already had a spotlight in the middle. So just by changing how it reacts to that, ooh, interesting, to that darker surface. Color dodge. You can change the opacity of that. There we go. So you can see through it. I think I'm going to go back to multiply. But again, you can change the opacity, so you can change the brightness or intensity of that color. All right, I kind of like that. Now, for whatever reason, I can't get gradient overlay to work. Oh, there it goes. Now it's showing up. So it's just a bit of a preview issue. I'm going to change the opacity a bit. I don't want it too dark, but I just wanted to create a little bit more lighting illusion because our light's coming from the top and the light is gradient. It's getting a little bit darker as it goes to the bottom. All right, let's see what that looks like. All right, and that's just playing with the layers they already have by double clicking the layer and playing around with these settings here. Now, don't go too far or you can really mess this up, so you have to be careful with that. But you can play around with the with their own. So this logo, if I turn that on and off, that's the logo inside the chocolate. If you want to play with the bevel and emboss on this, and you want to increase the opacity, here we go. You can see that it's getting slightly darker in there. Like if I go a whole 100%, see how dark it got in there? So if I zoom in, look at how much depth that has now. If I back off the opacity and the shadow at the bottom of that bevel and emboss, see how I can back it off? So you have control over what they've done here. We can change the depth, but that's getting too carried away and it's hard to read now. So I want legibility, but I don't want to go too far. There we go. If I change the size, look at that, I make a mess of it. So just be careful how far you go with these, but do play around with them. And if you don't like the results of what you did, you can always cancel it. So I'm just going to increase the shadows. I want that to be really legible and dark looking, deep. And I can change the size. I'm going to type in a 1 here. It's a pretty small object, which is why it doesn't take much change here. But if you go too big, you just lose the effect altogether. So again, be careful how much you do. And it's relative to the amount of pixels in that shape that gives you the results that you have. So play, play, play. So if you got lost along the way, just back up on the video and you can create this amazing effect using somebody else's template. But the trick is to go through to see all the bits and pieces of the file they created. See that? In order to see what it is that you need to change. So that is the chocolate bar. There are lots of other files in there. So if you want to give it a go, turn them on, download them, and give it a go and see what happens. So what have I not turned on yet? Did I get them all turned on? I have a different effect here. So what did I turn off? Who knows? Let's see. I turned something off. I used to have green in the background, remember? So I think I'm having a few Photoshop issues because if we take a look, it's 79 or 72 megabytes. But anyway, I might have turned something else off that I didn't intend to. But that's okay. There's my chocolate bar. So that's how you turn your files on and off in order to see what it is you've done in here. All right, have fun playing with smart objects and replacing their logo with yours using the smart object capabilities that are connected to this particular template. Have fun.